Up next, I will explain what you and your lender need to know about the property approval contingency. Today's video is just a reminder that there are a couple of promulgated addenda changes that have been approved by the Texas Real Estate Commission. The new addenda were approved in November for your use, but they're not mandatory until March 1. The changes are to the Third Party Financing Addendum, the addenda concerning right to terminate due to lender's appraisal, and notice of buyer's termination of contract. The significant change that I want to address in this video is to the Third Party Financing Addendum, specifically the property approval contingency. The new addendum puts onus on the lender to provide something in writing as to why the property was not approved no later than 3 days prior to closing. A copy of this written statement then must be provided to the seller 3 days prior to closing in order for the buyer to terminate under property approval. Never before has the contract required the lender to provide something in writing in order for the buyer to terminate. Your current contract only requires the buyer to give seller notice on or before closing. And then under paragraph E2 of the Third Party Financing Addendum, the buyer authorizes the lender to furnish seller or buyer or their representatives information relating to approval for financing. The new form reads, buyer may terminate the contract by giving seller notice of termination and a copy of a written statement from the lender setting forth the reason for lender's determination. This must be done not later than 3 days before closing. If buyer does not terminate as required, property approval is deemed to have been obtained. The magic words, time is of the essence, is in the following paragraph covering all time frames under approval of financing. Time is of the essence means there is no wiggle room in these deadlines. The requirement for the lender to provide something in writing and provide it no later than 30 days before closing is new for your lender. My suggestion is you start educating your lenders about this change. Make sure your lender is aware that property approval must be decided and a written statement as to why it was declined given to the buyer at least 3 days before closing. The ramification of not timely getting the written statement from the lender setting the reasons why property approval was declined and providing this notice of termination to the seller 3 days before closing means buyer waives the contingency for property approval and is in default for failure to close. Please remember that all notices must be in writing, and if you have a specific address to which notices must be sent in paragraph 21, then the written notice must be sent directly to that address to be effective. Mere notice to seller's agent is not sufficient if the address in paragraph 21 is not the agent's address. This change to property approval will avoid, if you will, a last-minute out for the buyer. However, the buyer is dependent on the lender timely underwriting the property and then providing written notice. Make sure your lenders are aware of this and sensitive to the time deadlines in the contract. And if you need to negotiate an extension of closing because the lender needs more time, don't wait until the last minute to do it. Otherwise, your buyer may waive their right to terminate by missing the 3-day notice requirement as to the original closing date. These videos are brought to you by Allegiance Title to help you with your business. In turn, we thank you for supporting ours.